How do you measure the success of an event, of a show like that? Is there certain KPIs? Is there, so many contacts? Is there a dollar number associated? How do you measure that? Is it just a feel?
Yeah, it's a little bit different to how I used to measure it. When I was younger and I'd go to PMA conferences, or I'd go to the Berlin conference in Germany. Fruit Logistica, yeah. I always looked to come out of there with one good customer. And if I had one good customer, usually you come out of there with, 25, 30 cards, 30 different companies. But if you come out of there with one good customer, it was a very successful show. Now I look at it a little bit differently. I've been doing this for over 30 years.
Hey friends, we're back here. We're in Guadalajara. As you know, it is my hometown. This is where I grew up. Just a few miles that way, I can go see all my friends. And here we are, seeing all my new friends as an adult here. We're with Roger Gay. We're at the Mexico conference. What do you think? How's the conference gone?
Well, the conference has gone very well. And I'm actually not from Guadalajara. I'm from Mexico City. So
it's my favorite city in the country.
These guys tend to call us Chilango. So I'm officially a Chilango. Even though I don't really look like it, but I've been there most of my life. And yeah, this is a conference I come to every year. I'm a member of the board of the IFPA, and every year I run into customers that I'm doing business with, customers I have done business with. I was invited to a suppliers meeting for Walmart. So really, it fills all my expectations. I'm very, very glad I came. And I'll be here tomorrow and head back to Chilangolandia tomorrow.
Yeah, I grew up in Guadalajara. Mexico City is my favorite city in the country, in the world, actually. But anyway, so how do you measure? You come to these shows, you go to a bunch of other shows in the States and whatnot. How do you measure the success of an event, of a show like that? Is there certain KPIs? Is there, so many contacts? Is there a dollar number associated? How do you measure that? Is it just a feel?
Yeah. It's a little bit different to how I used to measure it. When I was younger and I'd go to PMA conferences, or I'd go to the Berlin conference in Germany. Fruit Logistica, yeah. I always looked to come out of there with one good customer. And if I had one good customer, usually you come out of there with, 25, 30 cards of 30 different companies. But if you come out of there with one good customer, it was a very successful show. Now I look at it a little bit differently. I've been doing this for over 30 years. Now I look at it more like just meet up with people that I talk to on the phone a lot, that I can go have a drink with. I'm going to have some dinner tonight with some people. Having met some of the people at Walmart that, like I said before, and now I got to meet the whole team. Walmart, they know who I am. We put a face to each other. So that's kind of how I rate these kind of shows now.
You said something really key, that whole putting a face to it. We do the Zoom thing. Thanks to COVID, we've learned how to, kind of do that. We do the WhatsApp thing if we're international. Struggle to get most Americans to buy into the WhatsApp.
Yeah. But anyway, for some reason.
That's a different story. Yeah. But the face-to-face thing is just can't beat it.
Yeah, you get a much better feeling when you face-to-face. It's much, much better feeling than being on WhatsApp or being on a Zoom. You're totally correct.
Yeah. Now, you've been in the produce deal for how long?
I've been in the produce deal since 1989. So that's almost 40 years.
1989.
That's a lot of years.
I was a junior in high school.
You trying to say you're a lot younger than I am?
Slightly,
okay.
Just slightly.
Right.
But so, what do you like about produce?
Oh, produce. God, what do I like about produce? It is so dynamic. There's so many things going on every single day. No day seems to be the same. I mean, I love that about produce. And sometimes I kind of hate it about produce too, right? I mean, I want to stop learning sometimes.
The blessing is a curse as well.
Exactly. And, along with all that comes stress, which obviously the stress of delivering stuff on time. We're basically delivering into Canada, into the US, and into Mexico. And, you kind of want to be perfect in a very imperfect world.
Yeah. We just had a couple of interesting conversations. We were talking with a gentleman from DRC, talking about how Canada is a challenging market in some ways because there's not a really developed secondary market for problem fruit. And so how you have to kind of dot your I's and cross your T's better going to that market.
Yeah.
Then you mentioned some challenges here in the US, up in the US of, kind of penetrating that market. And we just heard in the conference all this whole tariff talk. So
Yeah.
there's some interesting strings to pull on there. So what's your feeling internationally now?
You know, definitely. I've been, you know, I started my business in '89, and I was probably shipping, you know, fresh cut flowers. It's probably one of the first things I shipped to Canada. So I really have been in Canada. I mean, I'm Canadian. I was actually born in Montreal, even though I've lived in Mexico City most of my life. So I went to university in Canada. So I always had a real love for Canada. So, you know, so Canada's sort of, I guess, a natural for me, and we've grown it, and we have an office in Toronto, office in Vancouver. And recently, probably about, I would say 3 or 4 years ago, we thought, well, okay, let's try and sort of crack the U.S. market. And it has been a real challenge. I mean, I'm talking mango specifically. I mean, it seems like most distributors, I guess, most importers really only want to work on consignment. I don't believe on working on consignment. I just can't think of the worst thing to do than to buy something at a price and ship it and hopefully get the money that the distributor is telling you he's going to get for you. So yeah, it's been a real tough time. I invested a lot of money in a couple of my packing sheds to be able to process stuff for the United States. And I'm to be honest, it's one of the biggest challenges I've had in quite a few years. It's kind of trying to find my way through that market.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I think the U.S. market has started or was traditionally a consignment kind of approach because most of the farmers owned their own fruit, and they had the power of saying yes or no or who they were working with. The market's changed a lot in the last 10, 15 years, definitely in the last 50 years. And so that is a key component. When you're talking export, somebody ends up holding the bag if something goes wrong.
Well, you know, it's interesting, and I always say it, and that's probably why the U.S. is the number one strongest country in the world is, you know, U.S. sells everything at a fixed price and buys everything on consignment. So they can't lose either way.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
And then they tariff it on their way. No, sorry.
Well, no.
I'm not trying to get political.
Just tomatoes, we hope. Keep our fingers crossed. It's just tomatoes.
That's great. So now you're doing mangoes, and let's talk a little bit about that because I guess until I had talked to you, I knew there was varieties, but it was just all the same.
Yeah.
And since we've gotten to talk, I mean, you have this, what is it, the cherry
mango. Yeah, we've got the Nam Dok Mai, which is one of the favorite mangoes of Asian people. We've got Austin, which is one of the favorites of the Spanish people. And we have, what's the other variety we have? Oh, we have Palmer, of course, which is a favorite mango for the Brazilians. So we're trying to diversify. We're trying to be a little bit different to everybody. You know, we're not into like shipping 10, 15 loads a day. We're you know, as we've progressed, I've bought land. I'm a huge believer in high density plantations, which 95% of Mexico is not.
Yeah.
And that just means, you know, instead of having 80 trees per hectare, you have maybe 400, 500, or 600 trees per hectare. And yeah, and the variety thing I think is big. I think, you know, some people think I'm a little crazy, but the apple, you know, I kind of got started when the apple business just kind of got started and changed. It used to be Red Delicious, Golden Delicious, and Grannies, and that was pretty much all there was.
Red, gold, green.
And as you know, I buy apples in Washington, I buy apples in New Zealand. You know, the business has totally changed to how it started.
Yeah.
And I kind of get the feeling the mango thing is going through the same thing. We've got these old varieties, Tommy Atkins, Hayden's, Ataulfo not so much, it's much younger variety, Kent's and Keats, you know, and they're all, you know, 50, 60 years old. I think, you know, not everybody, there's a few companies like mine looking for that Royal Gala, if you want to call it, which is the new variety, which has a good yield, good color, you know, small bone, orange fruit, like just something different to what everybody else is offering.
So what does that look like in the retail store? Like if I go to, I mean, Kroger's banner, Fred Meyer's, right down the street from my house. I go there, and mangoes are, you know, $3 a mango, or sometimes $5 a mango.
Yeah.
So, and it's just kind of the run of the mill thing.
Yeah.
So, one of these more important, or not important, one of these more differentiated varieties, what does that look like to the consumer? Are we talking $10, $12? Is that what's the market for that?
No, you see, it's so interesting. I mean, quite a few of my customers in Canada sell, you know, I'm talking big retailers, they're selling mango by the box.
Yeah.
And they're selling mangoes at, you know, sometimes it costs maybe a little bit below cost at $9.99 for a 10-pound box, you know.
Yeah.
That's 90 cents a pound.
Yeah.
You know, that's cheaper than apples and almost as cheap as bananas.
Well, yeah.
So I sometimes think And you're right. I don't know the U.S. market that well, but I think if some of these retailers started really focusing on selling mangoes like we do in Canada and sell them by the box, I think there'd be a lot more movement, and you wouldn't see, paying $5, $6, $7 per mango. To be honest, I think is a little ridiculous. You're never going to sell that many mangoes. But when they're cheap, put them cheap at retail so that we get a lot more movement through the pipeline.
That's always been the conversation. The retailers, they got to make their money. It is what it is. They're not going to work for free. But if you would just bring that ring down just a little bit, then people will take more. Especially if you put it in a box that people can take more.
Yeah.
Instead, you get these really tired. They look like they drug them in the back of the truck, and then they want the kind of money that they do. It's hard to get somebody to look past the exterior, and most of the time the interior is perfectly fine. It's just that exterior look. So I'm excited to see what mangoes do, and I mean, it seems like there's a push. You see it in the food service industry now. There's mango, all kinds of stuff. My daughter's a chef, and they're doing mango flavored croissants, and they're doing all kinds of stuff.
I never thought I'd see the day where I ate a mango salsa, but
it's
actually very good. It's
little
mango with mango in there, and it's actually very tasty.
Yeah, it's always good, a little sweet, savory. But anyway, well, thanks so much. I really appreciate the time.
Really
thanks for joining us, folks. As always, please subscribe. We want to have your input. Please let us know what your favorite mango is. Share any experience, a positive one, negative one, that's fine. I can't fix it for you, but at least we can commiserate and keep an eye out for these other interesting varieties. The Honeycrisp of mangoes.
I sure hope so. I hope so. Yeah, in my case, that would be great.
We're both old Apple guys, so we've used everything as from apples as a comparison. So anyway,
my favorite is actually the Envy, by the way. But
No.
Oh, okay.
Envy is probably right up there.
Yeah.
My first apple experience that I really enjoyed was the Jazz.
Yeah.
Because I had never tasted an apple that was dense like that. And
crunchy,
once I got that, it was
goodness.
and the Envy has that too. So
well, what I tell everybody about Envy is leave them outside for a week, and you'll bite into it and it'll still be crunchy.
Yeah.
And there are very few apples that can do that.
Yeah. Well, go get some apples too. Get your mangoes, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks very much.
Bye.